trio of sophisticated. Um, did you know that Audible has over 150,000 titles of books waiting for you to download on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player? If you go to www.audibletrial.com/whiskeywinemoon, you can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial. Don't wait. Get your free audiobook today. All right, it's time for episode 60 of Whiskey, Wine, and Moonshine, starting right about now. Let me cue the applause. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sojo, better known as Moonshine, and I am joined by Lady Buddha, our whiskey, and Miss Think Pretty Smart, our wine. And tonight we welcome back our special guest and friend of the show, Kimba Fuzz. Before we started, Kimba, we asked, we told you needed a name. So what's going to be your name? We got Whiskey, Wine, Moonshine, and?
I would like to go with vodka.
Yes, Whiskey, Wine, Moonshine, and vodka. All right. Speaking of vodka, how is everyone? And let's get a beverage check-in. Buddha, let's start with you.
I'm great. And I am drinking some Epa sangria, which I really like. And even though the first time I tried it, the guy at the store raved about it, and I was like, oh, kind of fair. But then I've been drinking a lot of cabs since then. And so I decided the other day that I wanted some sangria, and I tried it again, and it tastes really yummy. So it just depends on where your palate is at the time, I guess. But I like it.
Yeah, sangria used to be your thing. I missed having you in the sangria.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a temporary detour. I wanted to drink sangria while pretending to watch the World Cup. Whoop, whoop. All right.
Pretending to watch? We're going to get into that in a second.
Now, will you be serving that sangria at your wedding?
See, listen.
Intrusive question?
Listen, we have a system, and the system does not involve you asking me intrusive questions on the podcast.
Not until Wednesdays. I have Tuesday with the inappropriate and intrusive wedding questions.
Who can help it? It was so easy.
We have, yeah, the inside
What you got
continues. Anyway, I don't know what we're drinking, so that's it.
I have this stuff. It's Red Dream, and honestly, it's not all that great. I really have gone to the store and asked for this Mi Amore or whatever by Romagna, some other stuff on the bottle, and I had a picture of it and everything. And so the little girl, and this is the second time I've gone there and they didn't have it. So I go there, and she's all, we don't have that. You're the second person who's asked for that today. La-di-da-di-da. Mind you, I went there like very close in the morning, like midday. And so she leads me to this stuff. And when I tell you guys that it tastes like Faygo soda and Sprite,
Oh.
I think it's true. Not that that's a bad thing. But
I was just about to say, is that good or bad?
It tastes like red Faygo and Sprite. I'm okay with it, but it's still not the taste that I was going for. So that's where I am today.
Lord. Kimba, what about you?
So even though my new name is vodka, I am drinking a very sweet red wine. I didn't bring the bottle with me. I left it in the kitchen. But it's Vino. It's fabulous. So good.
It's fabulous. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I didn't bring a bottle either because I did one of my smoothies. So it has strawberries, pineapples. It has sangria, Lady Buddha. And it also has moonshine that somebody's daddy up in the mountains or granddaddy probably made. So that is what I have for my beverage.
Wait, I have a question because all that you just said with smoothie and moonshine, that really sounds like a recipe for the liquor shits.
You said that last time when I had the spinach. I don't have spinach in there today.
It's a whole.
It's the smoothie with the kick. It's no different than like a margarita or something like that. I see your eyebrow, ma'am.
Yeah, because
I saw the side eye right there.
Right, it's the eyebrow judgment that she always gives me. But no,
well, we have side eye and like interesting backstory. But anyway, blah blah blah.
Okay. Anyway, on to the show. Go ahead, Sojo.
Well, before we get to the show, we have had a good time in the chat. We've been behind the scenes for about half an hour now, so I feel like we've been on air for a long time, talking about a little bit of everything. But do we want to discuss soccer? I mean, not the sport.
We want to shout out Tim Howard.
Y'all can do whatever y'all want because I don't know nothing about soccer.
But you should know about Tim Howard.
You should know about him.
Everyone should know about Tim Howard.
Amen. Yeah. That's currently my Facebook profile picture. Tim Howard. He's fine. He gives great interviews.
Have a more interesting look than Felon Bay.
He looks like Common, actually.
He does look like Common.
He does. He does.
So America lost today, but American women won because
American women won. Well, and Tim Howard won. So he's made 16 saves, which is the most in World Cup recorded history.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of opportunities for Belgium to score that didn't go in because of Tim Howard's heroic feats. So,
what state does he live in?
Now that we don't know.
You know what? I should know this.
I haven't done enough stalking.
Our guest said she knows this. What state does he live in?
No. I said I should know this, but I don't.
You're our sports expert. You're supposed to know.
I know. Right, I'm down on my stalking skills, though.
Because he's the keeper for a team in England. He plays for England.
Oh, and he's on the American team?
Yeah.
No, he plays in the Premier League like during the regular season, and then he's on the U.S. national team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Twitter had me rolling because they were talking about all his saves. So, of course, they had the jokes. Like, somebody said he could have saved my parents' marriage. Somebody was like, he could have saved Robin Thicke and Paula Patton. Like,
no, he couldn't do that.
Yeah. But yeah, he did an excellent job today, and that was a really good match, so. Yeah, shout out to USA and Tim Bay.
Okay, just an FYI real quick. Tim is from New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Really?
He plays for the Everton English Club.
How old is he, and is he single?
He's not
single. He was born in 1979. He is divorced, I believe, with 2 children.
So he's available.
Right. I mean, he's single until the ink on the marriage license is dry. So he's divorced.
Ooh, wait a minute. Is that the game we playing? Hold on.
He's a viewing public promise her nothing. He did. So
No, he is divorced. I don't know if he has like a girlfriend or whatever, but he is definitely divorced.
Girlfriend, but we promised her nothing. He did.
But but is he though? Because it says his spouse is Laura Howard. That's not true anymore.
No, it says the 2 divorced in 2010.
Oh, see. So, ladies, check out Tim.
So Tim is attractive, and he's not in jail, ladies.
And he knows how to save good things. So, yeah.
And he is 6'3". Ooh. I'm just saying.
Love it, man.
You have just bought the gospel, Terry. You've just bought the gospel.
All right, let's get into the show. Before we talk about our main topic, let's talk about a little bit of feedback. So tonight we're going to do something just a tad bit different. We received so much love from you guys retweeting us on Twitter, responding on our Facebook polls, giving us shouts out, sharing, and all that stuff. So we said that we were going to make a little club for our commenters, and didn't we agree to call it the Toasters Club? I can't remember. Did we say?
We didn't decide. We said stickers, toasters, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we said something. So we need you guys' suggestions about what you all want to be called. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and give shouts out to our latest commenters. And I'm going to start first with the people who comment and share our posts over on our Facebook page, which is, of course, Facebook, but under Whiskey, Wine, and Moonshine. And I'm just going to give them a toast since we don't know, what they're called yet. But toast to Charles B., Brian P., Lady Rowe, Hustle Crow, Sharita L., Queen Neen from the In Deep Show, Kai Love from the Pisces Life, and Ladies Lunch, Woo the Man from our old blog days. Yeah, he comments and likes and stuff like that. Friend of the show, Ted, of course, who was on I forgot the name of the episode, but
the Miseducation of the Negro.
Yeah.
Negro.
Yeah, so friend of the show, Ted. Then we had Derek, single simulcast, And Jamila, who is also known affectionately to me and Lady Buddha as Hellraiser. And shout out to Blue, who is also in in our club.
Yeah, but that's my fiance.
And there's some of you, huh?
I said, who is over here texting me information about Tim Howard because he hears me in here talking about
Did he find out his true relationship status? Tell him this
well,
is
the
what
internet says he's still married. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. I'm looking at a post dated June 26, 2014, talking about he's been married 11 years.
Maybe he's trying to work it out.
Mm-hmm.
His
like
Wikipedia page says they're divorced.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be like Robin and Paula. We don't know. Maybe he's trying to get her back with all the saving he's doing.
Trying to save their marriage. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, so there's some of you that consistently retweet our episodes on Twitter, and you guys don't go unrecognized. We definitely want to thank you all. So this is a long list, so I'm about to, read these out. Sweeter Nadia, F. Scott Holla, St. Clinton, Shout of Jen, I Am J Mayo, friend of the show Leonard Brothers, who is L Brothers Media, Learn Traveler, Wits Tits or STFU, which I just realized what that Twitter handle meant.
I've seen
that one is so hilarious. Carolyn, Moon God, Lady Row again, Brothers Lehman, who has a podcast, definitely check them out. Dewan H, friends of the show, Two Guys, One Show, of course, with Rich and Wiz. The Black Astronauts podcast, definitely check them out. Miss Beatty, Jarrett Mabin, Mugman2K. So, wow, those are just a few. And if I missed anyone, charge it to my head and not my heart, because all this feedback, support, and sharing that you guys are doing is simply amazing. So I did want to just kind of make that an ongoing part of the show, is giving you guys shouts out in the feedback section as well. So I'm going to do a little round of applause. All right, and I see Jeff over in the chat, and we want to give you a shout out too, because you are always one of our most faithful viewers. So he says, hey ladies, looking pretty like always. Thanks, Jeff. And he says that he loves Whiskey, Wine, and Moonshine. It's the best podcast he ever heard and saw. So thanks, Jeff, for you and your support for the show.
Right. Nice.
Okay, so our main topic for today is women's work and wages. And we came up with this episode because Miss Smart was actually sharing with us a segment that she saw on Real Sports on HBO. And so, Smart, you want to kind of give a little bit of a, I see the eyebrow of judgment already.
It is.
Go ahead and talk your ish.
Right. Shout out to Queen. So basically, this was on Brian Gumbel's Real Sports, and it was a 15-minute segment about NFL cheerleaders. Some of the cheerleaders, particularly the Raiderettes, only get paid a handful of dollars for every game, but they're also expected to go to practices, for photo shoots, meetings, and workouts. They do up to 3 practices a week and 10 home games a year, and then they have 9 months of all that other stuff. And I think in the show they said it's a total of about 350 hours, but they only get paid $1,000. And this got all deep in my spirit because that's less than minimum wage. And basically what they're being asked to do is off the books work, working off the clock, which by the Fair Labor and Standards Act means that they should receive at least minimum wage or at least 1.5 times their regular rate of pay for hours worked over 40 in a work week. So that just, it dug into my spirit, because there's this one side of the coin that says, they get access to all these opportunities, and by opportunities is usually I think the subtext there is they get to rub shoulders with billionaire men that I would never get to rub shoulders with, so they should be okay with this shoddy work situation. But even if they're stupid enough to go for this shoddy work situation, this is still America, and we have laws in place to protect the foolish and the children.
Full disclosure, everybody's like, I auditioned to be an Atlanta Falcons cheerleader. How about that?
Sure did.
Oh, wow.
Sure did.
It was a long time ago now. We're talking over 10 years ago, but maybe not quite 15. And I did make it through 2 rounds of cuts. Yeah, but so, and I knew at the time that they didn't get paid much per game, but everybody that I knew who was already doing it was working full time. So I looked at it like it was a stipend to just go cheer at a game, to go dance on the side. That's how I was looking at it at the time.
That's what they bank on, yo. That's what they bank on.
Well, the thing is, because they have, of course, they have a few lawsuits actually going on right now. So I don't know if the Raiders cheerleaders were suing, but definitely the Buffalo Jills are in litigation right now. And so one of the main things that they're talking about is the difference between, they're not classified as employees, they're classified as independent contractors. So that's how not the NFL, because they're not hired by the NFL.
Right.
But
they're hired by companies that are owned by each NFL team.
Right. And so what they are saying and trying to get around is that because they are not employees, they are not obligated to pay them minimum wage. So basically what they're trying to prove right now in the Buffalo Jills lawsuit, from what I'm reading, is trying to define whether or not they are employees. And so I was, trying to look up the difference between an independent contractor and an employee, and it seems like all of the stipulations and requirements that the NFL cheerleaders have, spoken and unspoken, or that sort of thing, are the same things that pertain to employees. They're just not technically classified.
No, it's not a technical thing. It is 3 basic questions, at least from the IRS perspective. Does the company control what the worker does and how the worker does their job? We're all going to say yes. Are the business aspects of the worker's job controlled by the payer? So things like, work being paid, expenses reimbursed, who's providing tools and supplies. They are not. See, the cushy thing is that they don't provide, or they can get away with, some of the teams can get away with not providing tools and supplies if they don't provide the uniforms. They make the girls provide the uniforms. But
that's the crazy. That was crazy. But
right, $650 for the uniform.
Exactly, which I don't know. I could pull out my sewing machine right now and make better pulled together uniforms, especially uniforms that would pass their little jiggle test that fit right.
The jiggle test, I wrote that down.
Wow.
$150. But I think for this, and I think the third question is about the written contract, whether they're pension, insurance, and vacation pay. But the biggest thing here that leads me to believe that these women are not contractors is that their work is controlled by the company that they work for. The company tells them where they have to be to do the work. The company tells them all these other things that they have to do. And I think it's in the Jill's contract, when the company is telling you what type of feminine hygiene to do, they're telling you behaviors. They're dictating.
Yeah, that was extra. I used to be a 1099 though. Like the company that I work for right now, I was a 1099 for the same company previously, because that's how they hire all of us. We were all 1099s, and so they did still have the controlling aspects of a lot of parts of our job. But go ahead, Kimba.
I was going to say, to play devil's advocate for a moment, I feel like some of these teams look at the cheerleaders as a club, not necessarily as straight-on employees. So they're volunteering for this opportunity, as you said before. For example, like with the Philadelphia Eagles cheerleaders, they go a little bit beyond just being cheerleaders. They do a lingerie calendar, which could be exploitive, but they volunteer to do this, and they actually go on and make money in other avenues.
How do we volunteer to do this, though, Kimba? How do we know that?
I mean, like they volunteer to become cheerleaders. Like they volunteer to actually do that process. Like you don't have to.
Payment for it? Any payment for it?
Yeah, a lot of the women do.
That's not
because
volunteering.
But they look at it as the opportunity to actually be out there to dance, or sort of dance, because I don't really call it dance, to be out there to cheer, and to do these marketing opportunities. A lot of these women, I actually work with a young lady who is not a Ravens cheerleader, but one of like their cheer people, which is a little bit different. Like they have a whole subset of women.
Yeah, they're layers.
And again, you know, all that is fine. But in any other corporation, if my company says we're going to volunteer and feed the homeless on Thursday, and it is during the workday, and if I am a non-exempt employee, I still have to be paid during that time because it is implied. And if they put it in writing, or if there are several people who overhear it, it's implied that it is part of my job to volunteer under the umbrella of the company. Now, if I'm too stupid to know that it's under the umbrella of the company and I don't ask for any money, that still does not take away their responsibility to pay me for that time. And just because these young ladies may not up until this point, and we don't know because many things are settled outside of court.
This
and
is
it
very
makes it
true.
look like they don't have a case because we never heard about it. But anyway, if I am too stupid to speak up for myself or it gets settled out of court, that still does not erase the responsibility of the company or the parent company. And in this case, each NFL company is usually the parent company of that which is running the cheerleaders.
And so what you're saying is what Justin Swartz of Alton and Golden said, and he is, let's see, he typically represents people who sue their employers, and he's saying that cheerleaders are certainly employees. They're providing a benefit that directly entertains the fans, just like the players. He said the more they're required to do and the more they're required to show up at a particular time and work with others in a coordinated fashion and listen to a boss, the more they're sounding like employees. So he says he thinks there's quite a bit to that suit. And it's interesting because did y'all watch the making of the Dallas Cowgirls?
Nope.
Had those seasons. You know, it's funny that they put that as a reality TV show because even though they just showed a slice of that, the segment where they were telling the girl she was, you know, she needed to lose a bit of her stomach, that entire, you know, television show actually illustrated just how controlled their situation is. I mean, you know, so when you think about the things like he said, required to show up, required to listen to people, so forth and so on, they are basically being treated like employees. So
I have a question, and I completely like that segment, you know, touched in a lot of interesting places. But I started just trying to think about different ways or different lenses. And so, like high school, for instance, is totally different. However, you know, as a part of an auxiliary, you know, we volunteered our time to go to practices. We still had to pay for our own uniforms. We still had to follow whatever the protocol was, or we weren't going to be able to participate in the game. We had to look a certain way. They talked about what body hair needed to be removed and things of that nature. And I didn't participate like that at the collegiate level. But I know that there are some other auxiliaries like the Student Government Association where you might not get paid directly, but when we traveled for the SGA, you got per diem, things like that. And so it's kind of like all these different like similar and related sorts of things where you go into it knowing that it's not really a job because your job is something else, whether it's being a full-time student, for instance, but that you get some kind of compensation, but not like an employee, but you do have some rules that you have to follow in order to participate. So
well, what you're saying is how a lot of women who go into it actually think, because most of them have actually very lucrative careers. I know attorneys, you know, are NFL cheerleaders and, you know, educators and things like that. And so they do look at it more of a volunteer thing.
But just because they look at it that way does not mean.
And I'm not saying that it's wrong.
Or, you know.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's wrong. Like, what I think is that they should be classified as employees based upon their job description. But I do think a lot of people go into it with the mindset that Buddha is saying is that they don't mind the stipulations because they're saying it more of an auxiliary as opposed to a job.
Right. I wanted to give out a couple of stats. So we were talking about like the Gillettes from Buffalo. But like the Raiders cheerleaders don't actually get paid until the end of the season. They get paid $1,250, which is actually on the high end for NFL cheerleaders, sadly.
Because some get paid $50 a game.
Right, yeah. Like the Ravens cheerleaders, I think get paid $75 a game. It's ridiculous. Like it's just different levels of it. But the $1,250 for the entire season. So we're looking at 16 games, 8 home games. And I don't know, I can't remember, I don't think the cheerleaders travel, so you're looking at 8 home games and possible playoff games. And $1,250. And you're playing in the cold.
Yeah, and this was the same squad that had to purchase their uniforms, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're correct, yes. Yes,
so,
they did.
you know, you're talking about, and then they said the uniforms were $650.
So you're talking
about if they're only getting paid $1,200, half of that is going towards their uniform.
And they also pay for their own travel.
Toward their makeup.
Right, and they also have to pay for the Raiders cheerleaders also have to pay for their own travel. So they really are treated like, hey, you volunteered for this, you know, be happy you're here and go forth.
So, but what about this mascot? Because that was the thing that really made it crazy. The mascot's getting paid $30,000 to $60,000 for the same season that the cheerleaders are getting paid $125 a game for. So I get $1,000 to go to all my practices and pass a jiggle test and keep all the hair removed and insert these things the way they're supposed to be inserted and go to all my practices and learn all my choreography. Or I can put on this hot uniform and dance around and get a salary for a year, and that's all that.
Wait, stop it. And to take a line from Rod from the Black Guy Tips, you're being reasonable. What we're supposed to sit here and say is, oh, these girls get all this glamour and all this glitz. They should be happy that they get an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. That's what we're supposed to be saying. So let's just back it up. And
my question is, though, are the mascots considered employees or independent contractors? And if so, if they're independent contractors, who are they affiliated with? Like, right? I want to know. Right, I want to know the difference because
I want to know the difference too.
So that would be a question that I have.
Is it because there's 30 cheerleaders and one mascot, and so it's the same amount distributed amongst a different number of people?
But that math does not even add up.
It's fuzzy math, like Bush said. It's fuzzy math. Hey, y'all, I want to read a couple of things. First, I want to read because of this litigation, the Buffalo Jills have suspended themselves, or the owner suspended the team until the litigation is settled. So, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it's Stephanie Matsajan, whatever.
No, it is, go ahead. It is Stephanie Mattison.
Mattison, okay. She responded on the website, which is buffalojills.com, and she says, it was only after serious and thoughtful consideration, consultation with my attorneys, and with the best interests of the women who are members of the squad in mind, that the decision was made to suspend all activities for the Jills until this legal matter can be resolved. It has been difficult to read and hear the personal attacks being waged against my management companies, Stajon Productions, and myself in recent days. Those attacks have been driven in part because people have been drawing conclusions without having all of the facts.
No, bitch, we got Google.
Hold on. I'm gonna read what the NFL attorney said as well. It says, it has also been incredibly disappointing to see the complete lack of accountability on the part of the Buffalo Bills organization as it relates to this complaint. The Buffalo Bills own the trademark for the Jills. They control the field and everything that happens on that field, from the uniforms the cheerleaders wear to the dances they perform. Yet the organization appears content to attempt to wash their hands of any connection to their own cheerleading squad. The Buffalo Bills management operates a football team valued at nearly $900 million. If people believe they don't maintain influence and control over every part of their operation, including their cheerleaders, they are mistaken. I look forward to the truth coming out in this matter and people seeing all sides of this issue, not just what has been reported or worse, speculated upon by those who don't have all the facts in hand. Now, the attorney for the Buffalo Bills just gave a brief paragraph. He says the decision to suspend activities for the Jills was not done as a punishment, as some have suggested. The Bills refused to operate the Jills in the same fashion as the 25, this is her attorney, in the same fashion as the 25 other NFL teams that have cheerleading squads do. Unfortunately, the manner in which the Bills have handled this issue has left Stajon with no other option. The cheerleading squad exists for the benefit of the Bills, but without their support, the Jills cannot continue to operate. Ironically, the Bills stepped forward weeks ago prior to this lawsuit being filed and offered to pay the Jills to participate in draft day events and to supplement their pay for the 2014 NFL season, but withdrew a commitment to fund the squad after the lawsuit was filed. While much has been said about how the Jills were compensated, there is an extensive list of benefits given to the members of the squad that include free surgical procedures, free gym memberships, free tanning memberships, free tickets and parking to all Buffalo Bills home games. So I guess that should satisfy the cheerleaders.
The free gym membership, really?
Right. To maintain yourself, to look like I want you to look.
Right.
Two things. When I was a teacher, we got free stuff too, but that did not they did not have to pay my salary. That's one. And the second, as a subsidiary, and what you just read said that they have control over the Buffalo Bills image and all that stuff. So as a subsidiary, and I only know this from just some stuff that I do at work, when you gain a benefit or have influence on one of your subsidiaries, often you are held responsible for what that subsidiary does. So what they basically did was shut down the whole organization because they knew, their lawyers probably said, yo, we about to go down for this shit. And you had read something about them offering the girls something. In short, and I like the way they wrote that, they offered them a settlement, and them smart bitches was like, the hell we will. Because those girls knew that with settlement, or them and the girls or their lawyers knew that with settlement comes non-disclosure agreements. Right. So they were like, no, we're not going to take no settlement. And I would suspect that there are probably many other cases that have been brought up that the girls ended up settling before it made it to Bryant Gumbel. This is not a new thing, and these are not the first smart girls. They can't possibly be.
Well, I did want to say something about women and asking for more pay, because I happen to be a member of a website called the Lavo League, and that's a growing community of professional women. They seek advice about business, inspiration, career-related stuff, and they always do really good articles. And so they had one. They also have a Twitter campaign called Ask for More, and it's Ask the number 4 more, and that campaign is all about giving women the tools that they need to ask for equal pay, because a lot of times we don't know how to advocate for ourselves. So, you know, part of that problem is, I don't know if we don't think we're worth more, or, you know, or we're just ignored because of course, patriarchy, or what the deal is. But I am glad to see that that's taking place, where more women are beginning to advocate more for themselves. Even with this website, they have different chapters in different cities, and in Atlanta, they actually had a workshop to help you build your negotiation tools, so that you could begin to negotiate for yourself. So what do you guys think is the main reason that we don't tend to ask for more ourselves?
Because we're worried that we're going to lose our jobs if we ask for more. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's a male-dominated, you know, society. And it's been so ingrained in us that if we ask for more, then we're going to get the little pat on the head and, you know, shown the side door.
Which could happen for, in those cheerleaders' case, you know, we even had the conversation among ourselves, you know, if they don't want to do it, there's some 21, 22, you know, 25-year-old girls who are more than happy, you know, to do those practices and not
wait. More than happy to do the practices, more than happy to allow someone to break the law using their bodies. Let's just be clear on that.
But that's what I'm saying there, and I think that could be the reason that a lot of women won't come forward, because they think, well, and especially if they're ICs, then their contract can be terminated, you know, without any explanation. So they're like, well, I could be fired, you know, and some girl take my place. So there's a fear aspect there.
I think it's a couple other things.
With most, at least I don't know, in the state of Maryland, it's a little thing called at will employment. So you can quit and they can fire you. Like, you don't need to have a rationale for firing someone, as long as they're not a part of, as long as your reason for firing them does not fall under the umbrella of them being in a protected class. Like, I'm not firing you because you're a woman. I'm not firing you because you're a veteran. Any of that stuff, you could be let go. So I think at the core of this is starting to teach people younger their employee rights. You know, you have a right to lunch. You have a right to be paid minimum wage. There is a such thing as working off the books. Don't do it. And if you do it, they need to be paying you beyond 40 hours, time and a half, if you are a non-exempt employee. And I am so freaking sick, particularly women doing this to other women, like, oh, they should be thankful that they had X, Y, and Z. No, bitch, they can be thankful. They don't have to be stupid. And them being thankful, again, as I keep saying, does not negate the fucking law. It just does not.
So I have a couple of things. What you about to say, Sojo?
I'll wait. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, there's two people that come to mind. The first one is Jill Abramson, who was the editor of the New York Times, who did find out, because that was the other thing is, I think she asked for a substantial amount of money. She made a substantial amount of money. And we found out later that that substantial amount of money was still 6 figures less than her
right.
the previous man.
Right.
And so if you ask for $375,000, but really you could have gotten $400,000 or $500,000, I mean, you did your due diligence, but you just didn't know. The second person that comes to mind is Elmira Mangum, who is the current president of Florida A&M University.
Mm-hmm.
And when her contract came out, they offered her a decent amount of money. Still wasn't one of the top amounts in the Florida state system. However, some people in the Board of Regents tried to renegotiate her contract and take out some of the money and the compensation that they had offered her, because they felt like, well, she got offered more than her predecessor, and she shouldn't be making more than him, even though all these years had passed and adjusted for inflation and adjusted for all these other things. But she still had to fight to keep the original salary she was offered. She was offered it, and they tried to take it back. Yeah. So there are situations where the women are standing up for themselves, and that leads me to the whole idea of the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which the president signed, was the first law that he signed when he came into office. And the whole thing is, at the time, there was a statute of limitations on when you found out about a pay disparity and how much time you had between finding out and when that paycheck actually hit, and when it was too late for you to file for it. And it was like 180 days. And so they've extended that time to say that each time you get paid from the time you find out about a pay disparity, that still extends the statute of limitations from when you can actually file a lawsuit. So part of it is just finding out. And then up until this point, even when you found out, if you didn't find out in a timely fashion, there was nothing that you could do about. And I know this doesn't really apply to that situation, but I think it's kind of all these different layers about, there are women who do stand up for themselves and women who try to, and for various reasons they're thwarted. And the last thing is Melissa Harris Perry. One of the first things that I remember her tweeting about around 2009, 2010 was she was really advocating for women to really negotiate high and to ask for a lot, and especially for their very first jobs, because whatever you got as your initial salary was going to be the baseline by which all the rest of your salaries and your earning potential would be judged from then on. So she was like, you can't be afraid to ask for the numbers. So, those are just some of the things that popped up.
Well, here's something I kind of want to end this with.
Before she said that, so I understand what Melissa Harris Perry is saying, but that's not exactly true, in that, at least in this area, down in Texas, or anywhere where there is a large amount of federal contractors and subcontractors. Because a federal contractor and or subcontractor can only pay me or someone equal to me. And by equal to me, I mean the same level of education, experience, and job rating or performance rating, $2,000 difference unjustified. So I always tell people, you are well within your rights to tell the person in the office next to you, the cube next to you, exactly what you make. More people should, instead of freaking talking about scandal at the water cooler, they should be talking about their salary and benefits.
Well, your president just made it so that people could do that. That's an executive order they just signed that said that they wouldn't get in trouble for that.
It was never illegal, really. It wasn't. So they convinced y'all that it is. I mean, Rich and I from Two Guys One Show had a short conversation about this on Twitter. It wasn't. They just convinced y'all that it was. And there are all these tools. There's Glassdoor. There's PayScale. In fact, I was actually speaking to someone who said, "Oh, we don't want to tell people our salaries." And I'm on the phone, and I just look on Glassdoor. And
yeah, I was gonna say, even in my field, you can look up anybody's.
You can look up anybody's. Right on there.
Right. But those are positions that are somehow related to some sort of government thing. I'm talking about basic corporate positions. Salaries are listed, and further, if you take your job description, whether or not the size of the company, whether or not you supervise people, you can put all that into these huge databases. Companies pay to have other companies do this for them and see what the salary should be. I always tell women, if we're getting paid 77% of what a man is getting paid, ask for 23% more than what they give you. On GP, what they gonna say? No? or they
Well,
find it smart.
Well, here's something, and because we got to move on to Orange is the New Black, but Smart, I want you, and I'm gonna, of course, put this article in our show notes on the website. But this says 6 annoying things that women are told about their salary negotiation skills, and at the very end, they ask women to go and leave comments. And so I would really like if you went over to the website. It's an old article, but it says the study says women are actually good negotiators, but because they have been told they are bad negotiators, they don't perform well because they go into they are told that they will face negative reactions based on their negotiating. So they end up worrying about the expectations of their behavior more so than focusing on the salary or promotion. It also says women act like 13-year-old girls when they are negotiating. We keep quiet, we don't speak up, and that's our first big mistake. We have to learn how to sing our own praises. The female thing we do is use words like pretty good, sort of, and kind of, when men naturally brag and it looks good on them. They're supposed to be boastful and, alpha male type thing, but when we do it, we judge ourselves and judge others. And then there are 2 conflicting things. One of them says that the study says that women should act feminine and flirt in negotiations, meaning that it's more so of the feminine charm, not necessarily throwing your panties in the air. But then the other thing says that women act too feminine and appear soft and untrustworthy. So there's a fine line between flirting strategically and just flirting, and it becomes a gender stereotype thing, and they're considered soft. Then it says women are bad at negotiating for themselves, but good at negotiating for others. We, praise everybody else, but not necessarily ourselves. And then it gets harder for women to negotiate when they turn 37. It says that pay tops out for women at age 37, but continues to grow until age 45 for men. And so knowing your worth will keep you more aware when you walk into a meeting, and you have to keep track of your results and accomplishments and your gains, both hard and soft. So, Smart, I want you to go over there and drop some knowledge.
Well, what they're saying is true. You have to have your performance documented and be able to present it. And I always tell women, if I'm in the position to give them advice, go into negotiation like you rip the belt loop on an expensive pair of jeans and you're going up to Nordstrom's to get a return. Or you're going to Loehmann's or TJ Maxx to get a return. Because everybody knows you do not mess with a woman, black, white, Hispanic, when we are trying to get a return or use a warranty. You just don't. Because we always win. We will stand there, we will wear you down, we will let the line build up behind us.
Rod had a whole series of tweets about that.
Right.
Can I just say one thing about that, though?
Mm-hmm.
It does give me pause because it says that as a woman, we have to flirt.
I saw your face.
Yeah, because I'm just kind of like, wait a minute. So I'm not saying that we might not do this naturally, but I think I have a problem with them telling us as a woman we have to have that balance of making a man feel comfortable, because that's really what it's saying.
But doesn't it assume we're negotiating with a man? We could. What if I
The whole thing was one big conflicting thing about
it's like
versus
they
men
said that in
dynamic.
the article. They said that in the article because they said, okay, you just told us to flirt, then you said don't flirt enough. So here's what the actual comment was. Feminine charm is a strategic behavior aimed at making the person you are negotiating with feel good in order to get them to agree to your goals. In their experiments with nearly 300 people, feminine charm, which is defined as flattery, warmth, body language, playfulness, and sex appeal in this case, helped female participants create better impressions and improve their economic outcomes. So that's what that actually said in the article.
again, it comes back to stroke. Instead of talking about what we've done and how badass we are, like a man would go in there and be like, I'm badass. We have to go in there and be like, oh my God, you're so wonderful. You know what? Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so flattered that you took the time, because I am really qualified, but you're so nice. And oh wait, can I smile a little bit more for you? It's just
Can I lean forward while I'm talking to you?
Right.
Yes, and like kind of press up together like this and be like, hey. And make sure I can't wear a red suit because that's too powerful, but I'll wear a red lipstick so you're drawn to my lips.
Right.
And, just these little tricks of the tool that women have to do. A man can walk in there in a gray suit and just like, what? I'm here.
Right. But see, a man can also get pulled over by the cops and not use the I'm on my period excuse. So I personally don't mind using what God. See, I feel like there's this not even undercurrent, but this idea that if women use something that men don't have, then we're somehow cheating. But men use stuff all the time. The quote unquote old boys club, they use it all the time. And
That's true.
if the difference between me being able to buy a boat versus just a car is me leaning in, watch you gonna wear the best bra she got and lean all the way in.
And I think that when they defined it as flirting, I think it was more like when we go back to Pitch Like a Girl, which we tend to refer to often, I think they're talking about those pink soft skills that we have as opposed to the blue. Because when they talked about, Clinton being a pink, well, he does the exact same thing that they just described, in that particular setting. True. He flirted. He made people feel warm and comfortable and fuzzy on the inside. Inside.
They call it that down-home charm when he did it. Like when he does it, it's that down-home charm.
Yeah.
When you do it, it's flirting.
It's flirting, right? And I think it's a terminology that bothers me more than anything, because it was like, okay, it's charm as opposed to flirting, and flirting has a negative connotation when it comes to the workplace.
Well, I don't mind flirting. That's how I got a lower estimate today on my car. So,
well, it's 8:45, y'all. So let's go ahead and warning. We interrupt our regularly scheduled podcast for a special episode. What is this? 8? I think we're going to do of season 2 of Orange is the New Black. So if you haven't had a chance to watch episode 8 yet, which you should have, I mean, it's been almost a month, and you're getting your feelings about spoilers, go ahead and fast forward the podcast to our cheers section, because we're about to spoil the shit out of this segment. So without further ado, Kimba, we had asked you in the pre-show if you were watching Orange is the New Black, so I know that you've gotten through the entire show, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, well, and Miss Smart and I have as well, but Buddha has only gotten to episode 9. So we had planned to talk about 8 and 9, but I guess we only have time for 8. And this one
can do both of them.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Appropriately sized pots. And this is Piper facing a new backlash over special privileges, and Caputo feeling pressure to toughen up, resulting in administrative changes. So just to give the synopsis, the backstory in this particular episode was Rosa. This is the woman with cancer, and it was her backstory where she was a bank robber who basically all of her loves in these bank robbing escapades, she would do a kiss before and a kiss after, but the dudes always ended up being killed. So she thought she was cursed. And I, up until this episode, thought her accent was Russian.
I did too.
I did too. Right.
It was only until this episode that we realized she was a Latina. So that was, a plot twist.
That was interesting. Or something else.
Somebody dropped the ball.
Right. It started out with Healy telling Rosa that the Department of Corrections won't pay for her ovarian cancer surgery. And so she's bonding with the kid in chemo. This is when they come up with the plan to steal the money out of the nurses, whatever. And she goes into, and I'm kind of flipping back and forth, but she tells the kid at the very end that all the men in her life die from her past. And so when he got some news, she thought he was going to die too, but it ended up that his chemo was in remission. And then Piper received furlough, and of course Piper being Piper thinks that, she could just share that with everybody and it was going to be okay.
Oh my God, idiot.
Such an idiot. Yeah.
And she's the weak link. She really is the weak link.
We hate her. She does this big dramatic speech in the cafeteria, and it reminded me, I don't know if y'all were on Twitter when the blog, the natural hair blog Curly Nikki. Well, there was a white girl who did an article on Curly Nikki about her natural hair.
Talking about that when I came on here on camera. Rodney and we were talking about that. I didn't get to hear the end of it.
When she was talking about wearing her bonnet, and so of course black women were like, "You are on a black woman's hair site talking about your natural hair," and she went off on Twitter the same way. It reminded me of the way Piper went off on here, like, "You people." I know I'm privileged, but whatever. So that's what it reminded me of. She asked Healy to take her furlough back and then whines about it. And Healy said he couldn't help Rosa with her cancer surgery, but he was able to give Piper an extra nudge, and so basically man the hell up. We also get an introduction into what compassionate release is, which is going to come out a little bit later. And then let's see, Piper ends up. Sosa, the Asian girl, is staging a passive-aggressive resistance using must and funk. And Piper finds out her grandmother died before she could get out. And also the guard, Fisher, was fired. So any thoughts about that episode?
I have a thought. That is so not compassionate release.
It was very
I'm
non-compassionate.
like, that. How is that compassionate release? Like, hey, disheveled elderly person, we're just gonna, kick you out there and like bye.
Obviously
that
suffering
compassionate?
from dementia.
Right, and you have dementia.
Cost saving release, ladies. Cost saving.
Right, and that's what they should call it. They should call
Right.
it cost saving as opposed to compassionate, because that was like the least compassionate thing. And I know that was like a little subplot of this episode, but that bothered me greatly.
It bothered me
It
too.
bothered me too, because everybody knew, like when they talked about how she forgot to bathe for a month and all this stuff, and then when they so casually, and the Golden Girls said they didn't mean to be cavalier about it, but that she would probably die within the week or the month. That's real,
Right.
Yeah.
Another thing that happened in this episode, and I mentioned this in a previous review that we did, that they talked about what should we do? Should we get a reporter? Because Piper's like, oh, I know a reporter. Oh, nobody cares. Like, all these issues, they keep going back to, let's get it out to the public. Piper has this crazy idea, because she lives in a world where everybody cares about little blonde white girls. Oh, we got to get this out into the public. Nobody cares. Like, people have written about these things. Nobody cares. So I think part of what I would like to see on the show is them talk about or explore different ways that we can get people to care, because they are human. It is not humane to have the technology to help someone who is dying of freaking cancer, whether they're in prison or not, and just be like, no, checkbox, you don't fit the bill. That's like, who are we not better than that, America?
Yeah,
But we're not better than that for people who aren't in prison either.
You're right.
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing about
I was telling a friend a story about, because y'all know I live in Mayberry, which is comfortably south of Atlanta, and one of the things that they did back in '96 with the Olympics was that they were giving the homeless people, because they were trying to clear out that community, giving them one-way tickets on Greyhound to get them out of the city. They weren't necessarily caring about where they went or what happened to them after they left. They just wanted them out. So, our American version of compassionate is what's convenient. It's more, what's convenient for the people that want something to happen, as opposed to what's truly compassionate.
Right. Right.
So anything else about this episode?
I didn't feel sorry for Rosa. It's weird, because I felt like she was stupid at the end. I didn't really understand the need to go rob a second bank in the same day.
Oh,
it just felt like, this show is really well written, but that felt like shoddy writing. That felt like, let me just throw this out there so we can get her arrested. Because at that point, she's going to get away. They were getting away.
Right.
What was interesting about that was that we don't know, we've always on the show, Kimba, talked about how we see people's backstories, but we don't see what actually ends them up in prison. It was strange to me that we saw the crime that brought her there when we didn't see the crime for a lot of the other characters.
Right.
Yeah, so it was kind of haphazardly thrown together a little bit. So I definitely agree with you there.
I would like to point out, after Piper did that whole little stand-up routine in the cafeteria, that it was Crazy Eyes who hit her in the back of the head with pie.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Crazy Eyes has changed again. You're no longer my dandelion. You this stupid white bitch that is talking crazy, and you need to be hit in the back of the head with pie. Or whatever.
Remember, she's a weed. She's a weed. Remember, she is a weed.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
She is a weed.
I did not
Crazy
throw
Eyes
my
is a
pie
rose.
for you. I threw my pie at you this time.
That's right.
Episode 9, Piper's relationship with Larry faces a real-world test. Red's effort to redeem herself is finally rewarded, and a familiar figure returns to Litchfield. So we know that cute little guard, I forgot her name, I just said it a few minutes ago, was fired.
Fisher.
So Fisher. So that brings back Pornstash. And
I did not want him. I don't like
I did not miss him at all.
But his character is amusing to me, and how extra he, how extra.
I wasn't amused too much. He He was. I mean, porn stash is really the right name for him. But anyway,
It really is. So V tries to, kind of swindle Rosa like she does everybody, offering something that she needs with a little slick compliment. And Rosa isn't buying it. And then they do the flashback to Red and V's arrival at the penitentiary. And so in that flashback, we see V getting kind of bully welcomed by the Negroes. And she's friendly to a really naive and frightened Red, and Red thinks that they're going to be friends. And so she ends up sharing her hustle where, she gets her products from the same place that she cooks, so she starts swindling in the little cosmetics or whatever. And V kind of moves up the ranks while she's there and ends up trying to, of course, muscle in on her territory, and ends up getting her crew to beat Red's behind in the kitchen. And so it was also paralleled.
I was just exclaiming because I wasn't ready for that. You saw me.
Yeah, you weren't. You were watching it before we aired, and you kind of was like, "Oh no." And so, parallel with Red having to apologize to her family for being such a tyrant and ruling by fear, but seeing that scene where she got her butt beat kind of made me wonder if that was the catalyst for her to begin to become more hardened as she got older. And then we saw Piper returning home. Sosa is now, I don't know if she's still musty and funky, but she starts trying to do a hunger protest. And then the Golden Girls go and threaten the Latinas, which I absolutely loved when they rolled up in the kitchen.
That was great.
And Daya feels guilty and doesn't want to send Porn Stash to jail because she feels like that would be unfair with him, even though they were trying to set him up. And she just got on my nerves.
Well,
Daya's an
I
idiot.
understood Miss Smart because, see, Miss Smart earlier said every time Daya was on the screen, I wanted her off the screen. And I was like, well, why? What did Daya do? But it's like that episode in particular, I was just like, shut up. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah, she got on my nerves. And so then we also see a lot happened in this episode because Pusey realizes that hard drugs are being traded as opposed to just cigarettes. And then she goes to Tasty and, says, hey, did you know this was going on? And you're going to need to choose. Are we friends, or are you going to go to this, place that doesn't seem to be like you anymore? And Tasty kind of jacks her up a little bit and tells her not to get in either her or V's way. And so that was an interesting dynamic that, came up in their friendship. And then Piper is out. She goes to her grandmother's funeral. She finds out that Larry, and I use cheat in quotation marks, but has had sex with someone else. She just doesn't realize it's her BFF yet.
Right.
What they didn't point out there is, and I thought that in order to get furlough, like your family or somebody had to put up X amount of thousands of dollars for you. And so they never addressed that here.
Well, her family has money, so they probably did, and that made, what the thing is. But my people that's in jail, we never tried to bring them home, so.
Right.
Isn't Litchfield a federal corrections?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when you're in federal, they got to put up some money. You go and you stay in handcuffs the whole time, and then they bring you back. There's no couple of days hanging out. At least that's what I was told.
Well,
I mean, I'm impressed you stayed awake for that because honestly, I felt like I was sleeping through all parts of her furlough.
Piper, yeah.
I could care less. It was whatever. Get back to the prison.
Yeah, she got on my nerves. She did, and she did have a chance to go because Red asked her to see if her shop was doing all right, and she went and found out that the shop was closed. So that's the only part that I was like, "Oh, Piper," seeing the shop was closed. But everything else, I fast forwarded through the funeral scene and.
Well, the funeral scene was stupid, and her brother getting married. The whole thing was dumb. Like, why is that in there? Who cares?
Everything Piper related is dumb. Everything. This show is much better without Piper. It's like I understand she was the reason why they all we are seeing this bird's eye view, but she can go. She can go now.
That's the same thing we said.
Yeah, everybody is unanimously, in agreement that we hate Piper. And even though she's the reason the show exists, we want her gone. We also, again, I told y'all Red had the family dinner where she apologized to her crew and tries to make amends with everybody. And they actually said, we we don't want to be under that old rule of fear. And so she apologizes for that, but she kind of has this little thing with Big Boo where at first she slaps her, but then they kind of sort of make up. And then we see Big Boo later on sell Red out to V to kind of tell her about the operation that's going on. So that'll have some consequences later.
Well,
And
that
then,
whole thing was strange to me because I saw when Boo noticed the vent, and then she started like drawing all this attention to herself after that, and then that's when Red went up to go slap her. But I don't really remember their relationship prior to that moment. Like I never thought about Red and Boo at all.
well,
So
remember their tribe, you know, that's, even though I still think it's racial, you know, how they said tribal, not racial, but it seems like it's the Aryan nation almost, you know, and she's just,
it just felt strange. I just didn't remember them interacting at all for them to have like this hyper, you know, reaction right then at that moment. Like it just seemed out of place.
I didn't either until it seemed like almost like a mafia meeting, like a big Italian family type deal that they just had all the white people gathered in one space. So it was weird.
Remember, those were all Red's girls. So, like, when she was controlling the kitchen, like you're saying, all the white girls were with Red, and all the Hispanic girls were together, and all the black girls were together. It was totally segregated. And Red was a heinous bitch to them last year when she was on her power trip. And so I can see why they're still bitter about it. But this episode made me think that Red was an idiot. Like, last season, I thought Red was kind of badass. This season, I watched this episode, I'm like, Red is an idiot. I do not understand why she even approached V, like, earlier this season when she first sees V and they, like, hug and they embrace. I don't understand. This lady had you beat down.
Because deep down in her core, she's still that girl that's the outcast that all of a sudden gets a little
trying to be accepted, right?
Right. So when they show her background of how she was really truly seen, she probably, you know how a lot of people have those insecurities from being younger. She seems like she still has some of those things. So that's why she's forgiving of V, even knowing who V is. She's still, you know, forgiving of her, which is stupid. But yeah, but I did, you know, we saw in her backstory she wasn't as badass. So now that her insecurities are played up even more. We also.
I just want to say something real quickly. So if we can see that Red was not necessarily a badass before, and this is like a general theme about the show, isn't it possible that the people, maybe one of the messages of the show is that the people who do crimes are not necessarily badasses or badasses before. Like, this show gives you all the circumstances in prison and out of prison that these people make these decisions.
Oh, yeah,
and it goes back to what I said earlier, I think when we did last season, about the humanizing potential of this show.
That was the word that was floating through my head when you said it, is that it's very humanizing. You know, each one of these characters, except for Piper.
Yeah, because she can die.
And V's kind of like, they made V like horrible. I mean, she's like brilliant, but she's horrible. She's like a straight up villain. Everybody else, everybody else has like a soft story of some sort.
Yeah, she really is. She's a predator. She's a predator. It feels to me like she's a predator amongst almost naive, innocent people.
It is because she goes with the kids, and then them. She's something.
She exploits everyone.
I mean, you think about how she found Tasty in the park and was like, "Hey, Tasty girl," and right after that,
Yep. And so we also see Poussey sees Tasty give Nikki heroin. That was so messed up. Like, I was so angry at Tasty for that, but I knew she was under V's control. But for her to give Nikki that heroin, or I don't know if it was heroin, but whatever it was.
When did she give it to her? Because I don't remember that.
At the very end.
Yeah, at the very end, she walked up to her and told her the first one's free. Which, you know, if you give that. Oh,
I didn't see that. Okay.
It was like trying to draw her back in, because I love me some Nikki. Nikki's my favorite character. So for her to do that really, you know, and it's for it to be Tasty, because Tasty is my other favorite character. So that really got to me when I saw that.
Tasty is my favorite. Also, I didn't see that. I missed that one.
We see Bennett kind of nut up, and I think it's after Dea, you know, kind of takes up for porn stash. He nuts up and goes like hardcore, slapping everybody's stuff around in the dorm area. And so he nuts up so bad that, ironically, porn stash has to come out and calm him down. And then he goes and rats out Porn Stash to Caputo, telling him that he slept with Daya and Daya's pregnant with his baby.
Well, he ratted them both out. I just couldn't. I was like, whoa, dude. Like, everything about that was just kind of out there.
He was operating on emotion.
Huh? Well, he was, because first of all, he was being extorted by the Latinas. and then he was like, okay, I'm gonna stop that. He had already been kind of punked by Daya's mom, and so he kind of got over that. And so then Fisher got fired when everybody had ratcheted up, what they're supposed to be doing. So he's like, his job is on the line. And so now he's like, well, show me that you can, that you can lead, or that you can, that you're really up to the job. So we got Porn Stash, and he's like, got all of these things to prove to all of these people, including himself. Meanwhile, Daya is in there like Jack giving him a hand job, talking about, well, why are you gonna send that man to jail? He's innocent. I mean, so it's like a total mind fuck.
Do you want me to finish this or not?
Daya is living in a Sweet Valley High romance. Okay, it's just ridiculous. She is in prison, but she is like, oh, really? Why can't it be like this? I mean, I don't even understand her.
I think Daya's a lot like Piper, but for different reasons. Daya's that way because she's young and in love. Piper's that way because she's fucking entitled and annoying.
She is entitled and annoying. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, Daya, I'm trying to give her, because of the hormones, I'm trying to give her a little leeway, but she keeps working my nerves. The more selfish she becomes in this situation, she's working my nerves. So that's the end of that episode, and I guess we'll do 9 and 10. I mean, sorry, 10 and 11. Wait, 10 and 11.
10, 11, and 12.
10, 11, and 12 next week, and then we'll save the finale for the week after. So as we wrap this episode up, Kimba, what we've started doing now is giving cheers at the end. If there's anybody you want to give a special shout out to for the cheers section. So I know I didn't give you time to think, but do you have anybody or anything you want to give cheers to?
Well, I'll give a cheer to Jay Williams, since we were talking about him earlier.
Yay!
Yay! And then I'll also give a shout out to OSN. So cheers to OSN.
All right, and Buddha, who are your cheers to?
Tim Howard for being fine and a world record-setting goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. Whoop, whoop.
Smart. What about you?
I would like to give I don't really have a cheer, so I'll just give it to the lady at the liquor store, and by liquor store I mean wine and beverage store, who presented to me this wine as a substitute, not a suitable substitute, but still a substitute. So yes, a woman who was, they're on their feet all day, and they're always so nice and so willing just to help and answer questions. I don't
and
like
you up with alcohol.
Well, yeah, I mean, because that's the place.
Because you said you bought 4 bottles.
Right.
What you're doing right now is bring all this stuff. But that's the place he taught me how to make like sangria. Yeah, so, are we done?
Well, I forgot to I guess I'll go to me, then I'll go back around to tell people where to find yourselves. My cheers is really to, actually it's ironic because we were talking about flirting and that sort of thing, and I wanted to give cheers to femininity because I've been kind of doing some research from my site, and so I found so many women who have websites and things devoted to feminine power, and there's one called Feminine Weapon, which is actually where, they talk about providing an empowering space for women to celebrate themselves and also embracing their feminine power in various ways. And so the founder is Christina Weber, and her creative director is Manuela Reina. And, they're located up in New York. So I just wanted to give cheers to them because I really enjoy their site. So let me go back around and ask people where to find you. Kimba, where can people find you?
People can find me at Kimba Fuzz on Twitter. So that's me.
All right, Buddha?
I'm on Twitter at ndcollier, COLLIER, and then I'm also blogging at www.cocostudio.com. That's COCO Studio, singular, cocostudio.com. Miss Mark?
You can find me at your local brunchery. No, second. No, I'm going to brunch on Friday.
It's true.
Brunch. You can find me at think_p_smart on Twitter. And I did shut up. I did buy the Think. Well, I moved the Think Pretty Smart address over. So, and I say this, and I said it before, and I was lying before, but now I'm almost telling the truth. That I may start reposting some of the posts. Really? Okay. It's a lot of judgment. Y'all don't even know if you get.
Let me do the smart brow.
It's so much judgment. Anyway, I may start, because I be reading stuff I write, and why didn't you tell me how ridiculous I was as a human being?
You're still ridiculous.
Wow, wait,
You didn't
really?
self-reflection?
Really?
Anyway,
Okay.
I'm at think_p_smart on the Twitter, and possibly one day on my blog. Okay, bye.
We're gonna have a celebration when that happens. I see. I wanted to give Hustle Crow a shout out because he's in the chat, and I don't know if he saw us give him a shout out earlier, but I just wanted to say what's up to him. And you can find me on the Twitter at SojoXOXO. That's SOJOXOXO, and my website and Facebook page is Feminyin. That's FEMINYIN. So we will see you guys next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.